Darkness is just the inability to see what's really there, to
Mhm.
see what's true.
And we're all kind of walking in a measure of darkness
Yep.
because we can only see what we can see at this point.
The darkness is that which blinds us to or covers that which is already real, already true, already there.
Right.
God already loved us.
Mhm.
God has always been with me. He didn't just come and be with me because I prayed a certain prayer.
Right.
God's always been there. Goodness has always been there. There's been a mystery that's been hidden, veiled, or darkened from throughout all the ages,
Yeah.
but it's revealed, or the light is now being turned on, and we see Christ in us. Ho, ho, ho!
Merry Christmas.
I'm not Santa, I'm Rick, and this is Judy,
We're Santa's elves.
and we're doing the third option. Thanks for watching,
Thanks for putting up with our silliness.
and Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah.
So, last episode, we began talking about some of the prophecies, talking about the birth of Jesus. We talked about being born of a virgin. We talked about him being born in Bethlehem. And that was fun. If you haven't seen that episode, go ahead and watch that. I think you'll enjoy it. It's just some fun facts that lead up to Christmas season, but bringing out some spiritual importance and reasons for the fulfillment of those
Yeah.
prophecies. So today,
For unto us is born
yeah, one
a
of the
child.
prophecies. It's the one I often quote it, so maybe it's my favorite. I don't know, but it's found in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, and we
Mhm.
find it on Christmas cards a lot.
Mhm.
That's where you see it mostly. It's where it says, "For unto us a child is born, and unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace."
And this is describing Jesus.
Describes Jesus. Unto us a child is born. Now, the prophecy came again. It was so. So you said that Isaiah and Micah were contemporaries. They were ministering and prophesying around the same time. So they were dealing with the Assyrians, right?
Yeah, so Israel was divided in the north and the south. So you had Judah and you had Israel, and this Assyrian army was trying to not just defeat them, but to like disperse them, like to get them to come and be slaves for them,
Yeah,
basically.
and it's kind of it's interesting because these prophecies like this is like, yeah, well, you guys, this is what's gonna happen, this bad stuff, but it's gonna get better, and in the middle of this is given this prophecy. This is where these prophecies come out of such hard
Yeah, it's
situations.
like internal conflict, oppression, even though they say that they were during a relatively prosperous time for Israel, the the atmosphere of it was oppressive, and there was a lot of you're not keeping your covenant with
So
God.
so
And
so their behavior was an issue.
yeah, it was an internal of the
Okay,
country,
that's good.
and plus you're
That's
divided.
interesting.
You're north and south.
I just
Yeah.
thought of something uh, when you're describing that situation, oppression. Then you said, and they were also breaking the covenant.
Mhm.
So the behavior was a bad thing. So they're sinning in plain language,
And it
right?
says, even in the research that I did, that it was primarily how they were treating the poor was one
So
of the
often the case.
major
So
problems.
often the
Yeah.
case. And Jesus talked a lot about that too.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I was saying to you, even in politics, you have these politicians that go in with a good heart, let's just say, a good heart, they really want to make a difference, but as time goes on, they forget more and more about the people they're serving and become more about their own power and their
Instead of
own
changing
status.
politics, politics often changes
Just
them. It seems
that's what it
that's the
seems like.
story we've
So
heard
it
often.
yeah, and it seems like that is what's happening in Israel, particularly these, the Pharisees and the religious leaders and the government. They're not holding true to their origin story
So
with God.
is the story essentially that they're under the oppression and experiencing these things because of their behavior?
That's what they
That's interesting because in the middle of that, so they're not living right, not acting right,
yeah.
not doing right. They're experiencing hard things, and in the middle of that, God says, it's going to get good. It's going to get good anyway, not because and these things, these messianic prophecies are really cool because it's never because they finally start doing something good.
Because they never do.
They never do it?
I don't know, but
Well, it's from what I've read,
rarely do.
it's very short
Yeah,
lasting,
yeah.
but in spite of that, even though you're not doing well, you're not living well, you're reaping the bad consequences of that, it's gonna get good. I'm
Well,
gonna do something.
would you say that's
It is grace. It is amazing
mm,
grace. And so he, in the middle of all that, he says, "But I'm going to do something. I'm going to give this, bring in the Messiah." And so let's
yeah.
read. I want to read this, the whole context around this Christmas verse that we're familiar with.
Mhm.
Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2
2, okay.
is where I want to start. And this also is something that we find on Christmas cards and is quoted around Christmas too sometimes, where it says that. Yeah, my mic's on. It says, "The people who walk in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined." And he's talking about God here. He says, "You've multiplied the nation, you've increased its joy, and they rejoice before you according to the joy of harvest, like men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For you have broken the yoke of his burden, you've broken the staff off his shoulder, you've broken the rod of his oppressor, like in the day of Midian. Because every warrior's sandal from the noisy battle and their garments that are rolled in blood will be used for burning and fuel of fire." That means there'll be peace. They won't be at war anymore. They won't be fighting against oppression. It means that they won't have the burden and the heavy burden upon them anymore. There will be rejoicing. There will be rejoicing like people rejoice whenever there's abundance. And verse 6 goes on to say, "Because or for unto us a child is born." All of this is because this child is going to be born. The peace that's going to come is because this child will be born.
Mhm.
The rejoicing because
Mhm.
this child will be born, because unto us, given unto us, a child is born unto us, a son is given.
Mhm.
This child that would be born, as we read in our last episode, shall be called the Son of the Most High, the Son of God. God had a son. Now, he himself, the Word, abided forever, but now he's manifesting himself, revealing to himself in a flesh body here. A baby is born in the earth, and it wasn't Joseph's biological son. This is God's son, God's human son. And
It's a
he's giving
miracle.
up that
It's
human
a
son.
miracle.
Says, "And the government will be upon his shoulder." I want to pause right now about that. People are always, they're looking so often for external things. What we are experiencing right now is there is a government that's in operation right now. And this government, it has a ruler, has a king who leads us, who guides us, if we will follow, who is a wonderful king, who's not a selfish king, who's not an oppressive king. It's always good toward us, always
Mhm.
giving toward us and all that. It's wonderful. And this salvation that we have through him, we like to talk about. One of the reasons we do what we do is because it's the best thing that can happen to mankind. The
Mhm.
internal things get fixed or get healed or are made well. Just like you mentioned, the situation when this was spoken, there were internal things that were problematic and always have been since the beginning of time, it seems. And he says, but this goodness is going to come and the government will be upon him. He's the one that's going to carry this
Mhm.
whole thing. It's going to work, in other words. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor. That's an internal counselor. Mighty God, Everlasting Father. Jesus would come, and what was he declaring? Father, my Father, your Father. Pray this way, our Father, 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 Father. This is like one of the only times God is referred to as Father, um,
In
in
the
the
Old
Old Testament and all, and Jesus is like calling him Father, Father, Father all the time, and so do we now. And he will be the Prince of Peace. And the way that works, if you don't know, if you're wondering, well, when will it happen? It has happened, does happen, and is happening in the hearts of people who are receiving their King that way. And the peace on earth is here, but it's in the hearts of people, and it spreads to those that we have have influence with, or we have access to, or those who are in front of us. We spread those to those who see it, taste it, experience it, and believe in it. And so that's how the peace on earth will continue to spread, because the next verse says, of the increase of his government and of the increase of peace, there will be no end.
That's a great promise.
Where is the peace? It happens in one heart at a time, and it spreads from heart to heart.
And it doesn't decrease, it
It
increases.
only increases. It's
Mhm,
only going to get better. We're going, as a human race, even though there's so much horror and evil and violence that still goes on, it is much less than it has been in the past. We have a lower, what's the capacity for it? We don't tolerate it as much as we used to. We don't tolerate treating women a certain way that we once thought was okay. We
mhm,
don't tolerate treating children, poor people, people of another race or ethnicity or even
mhm,
religion. We don't Jesus has uplifted everybody, and we're
mhm,
feeling the effects of that slowly, but it's
mhm.
totally increasing as we go along. Anyway, I love getting into
Yeah.
all of that. But that's the announcement. This is all in the announcement, the prophecy of the one that would come. There is
Mhm,
so much richness in the prophecies. He says, there will be no end, and on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with justice and judgment from that time. So here he says he will come from the line of David to establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. And then it says, and the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this, or it will be his own passion, compassion that's going to make this happen.
mhm,
And we had nothing to do with it. God did it because of his own love,
mhm,
because of his own goodness. And he said, it's going to happen. It's
mhm.
going to get really, really good because of Jesus. And we celebrate that at Christmas time.
You were talking about the government, and it brought up to mind when Jesus's disciples were coming and they were wanting to know who was gonna sit on his left hand and right hand, and they wanted these positions of power.
Right.
But Jesus said, "It's not that way in my kingdom. It's the greater serves the under."
Yeah.
And, back in Isaiah's day when they were not regarding the poor and they weren't taking care of the lowers, it was because of that human capacity to start building its own little castles for
Mhm.
itself. And Jesus is saying that's not how this kingdom works. And so you can see in your own self, am I in this government? Am I in the government of Jesus, which made himself a servant to others
Yeah.
as opposed to a someone lording over the
And that's a
others? Yeah.
government that's in operation right
Yeah,
now
yeah,
in
yeah.
the hearts of people that can see it and are partaking of it, even though in the world people are still looking for dominion power,
Mhm,
strength power, might. And with God, there's the dominion that comes through love and
mhm,
peace and goodness and
mhm.
gentleness and
Yeah.
kindness and patience. And even though mankind has by and large kept trying to rule the world with another kind of power, this power has never quit. It
Mhm.
continues to move on. It continues to increase.
This is like a really small example, but because we travel a lot, we're on the road and we stop at, gas stations and we stop at restaurants and things, always get touched when someone holds the door for me. Like they have places to go and things to do, and they could just walk in, and yet they'll stop and hold the door while I walk in. And I always think of that as like a way to serve others is, and they smile, and just smiling and going, you go ahead of me. Like that is such a
That,
kind.
I like that you brought that up because I recognize that. You know what I think that is? That's part of that government that's in us. In our culture today, there's most probably the majority of people aren't in the habit of talking to strangers. Some do. Well, some will do that, but most people don't. But it's in them. They say, you know what? I want to. Here's how I can connect with this stranger. I will hold the door for them
Mhm,
and don't have to. And some will like kind of almost go out of their way to do it.
mhm.
Like we're still halfway across the parking lot sometimes, and we
Yeah,
and we kind of have to do that courtesy walk to try to hurry
yeah,
up and get there
yeah,
fast so they don't have to hold the door
yeah.
for a long time. But they want to do that. And that's them saying, I see you, I recognize you as my brother, if you will, my sister. It's my way of connecting right
Mhm.
now, of doing a kindness. And we connect through that kindness. And that's part of, that's like you said, it's a very small thing, but it is still part of that government that rules in our hearts. Everything about this government is goodness toward us. Our king is different. He's all about the best interest of us,
Not requiring
but giving.
taxation, like requiring things of us, but more empowering us or giving us what we need. Yeah.
He's not a king that needs our military might, spiritually speaking. He doesn't need us to fight for him. He doesn't need us to defend him. He doesn't need that kind of loyalty towards him. He doesn't oppress those who
Are against him
are
or
against his
are the
even
same
or
wavelength.
anything. Yeah. He's good, a good king, and he will rule and reign forever. Jesus came and brought that kingdom alive in our
Yeah.
hearts.
So the word counselor, because we call him in that prophecy, wonderful counselor, mighty God, everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. That word counselor, that's the kind of king that we have is someone who is willing to mentor us, to counsel us, to be with us, to walk us forward, walk us through things. You see Jesus being a counselor, you see this being fulfilled in the way he interacted with people, but particularly the woman at the well, he counseled her in a way that really confronted her past, but then showed her her immense value to him.
He's not like just a paid counselor that doesn't know you. He he's the counselor that knows us, like he knew the woman at the well.
Yeah, and his disciples,
Mhm.
the way he counseled them and helped them when they had questions. What do we do about the taxes? Why didn't this work this time? And he was constantly, would you say, meeting them where they were at and like, okay, here's how we deal with this. And
So
just
it was
very
with
loving.
grace, with wisdom, and all the God qualities. Would you say? I'd say the fruit of the spirit. Well,
Mhm.
why do we call him wonderful? His name will be called wonderful. What's that mean?
Yeah.
We everybody says uses the word awesome, and
Oh,
his name will be called wonderful. And to me, wonderful is incomprehensible.
that's one of the definitions is
When you look it
incomprehensible.
up,
Yeah.
it'll say
Mhm.
incom. So you cannot comprehend. You can't find the boundaries and the ends of
He's
this thing.
so
No
mhm,
matter how good you think he is, he's better.
mhm.
No matter how big you think he is, he's bigger. However amazing you think that grace is, it's even more amazing than you know. That's why his name is called Wonderful. And those of us that are being affected by him, we continue to be amazed by it, right?
Yeah.
We continue to say he's wonderful. We stand in wonder, and this good old gospel story never gets old. It never gets old because he's
Can
wonderful.
can you talk a little bit about the light? The people that walked in darkness will see a great light. Like a lot of times when you're talking about darkness, we're talking about, is it ignorance?
Yeah.
Is it
Darkness means blindness, ignorance. It's not people think doing evil things. Well, people will do evil things in darkness
mhm,
because of blindness and ignorance. They can't see that they're loved and they're cared for, so they're going to
mhm,
have to try to care for themselves the best way they can. Selfishness is bred in
mhm.
darkness, and then every evil deed can be born there. But it's out of ignorance. That's all it was, and that we see that ignorance from the very beginning, that it appears that Adam and Eve, they weren't aware how God really saw them,
Mhm.
and man has struggled with blindness and ignorance.
Yeah.
And darkness is just the inability to see what's really there, to
Mhm.
see what's true.
And we're all kind of walking in a measure of darkness
Yep.
because we can only see what we can see at this point,
And
but
we're in
there's
this ever
more.
unfolding
Yeah.
revelation of God. So
Mhm.
light is, like the scripture said,
Shining
it's
out.
increasing.
Yeah,
And
shining
of the
out.
increase
Mhm.
of this thing, there's no end. So, and that's exciting. That
Yeah.
makes life wonderful as we can be able to keep seeing more and be amazed more. But the darkness is that which blinds us to or covers that which is already real, already true, already there.
Right.
God already loved us. He didn't start loving me because I did something good.
Mhm.
God has always been with me. He didn't just come and be with me because I prayed a certain prayer. He's
Right.
always, God's always been there. Goodness has always been there. Paul the Apostle said that there's been a mystery that's been hidden, veiled, or darkened from throughout all the ages,
Yeah.
but it's revealed, or the light is now being turned on, and we see Christ in us. He has always been the
Mhm.
hope of glory. And so he says, you're going to see a light. They were not keeping the covenant. They were not living right, sinning in plain language. He says, well, you're in darkness. You're going to see a light. I lived in a whole lot of relative darkness,
Me
no
too.
concept of
Yeah.
God, did some horrible things in that darkness. And the whole time, God was loving me,
Yeah.
God was with me, but I couldn't see.
Yeah,
And
I was thinking the same for me. Of what I know now about God, I knew none of that. Like, I was just blind. I was just ignorant. I did a lot of self-destructive, trying to preserve myself in some ways and destroy myself in other ways.
Mhm.
But it was just I
Darkness.
just didn't know, what
It's
I
ignorance.
know.
God made a statement also in Isaiah, no, excuse me, Hosea. Anyway, he made it in the Old Testament. My people are destroyed, Hosea, for a lack
Hosea.
of
Yeah.
knowledge, of which is ignorance.
Or
They just don't know.
yeah.
In other prophets, in a place in Isaiah, he would say, they do not know nor can they see.
That's what I think the issue was in the time of Isaiah is they couldn't keep it together.
Mhm.
They couldn't the North and the South and the Assyrians were coming, and they were trying to keep the covenant with God, but they couldn't do it. And it was that realization that we we just can't do it.
Jesus is the revelation of the Father. He is the light turned on. Mankind has been in so much darkness about the beauty of God, the goodness of God, the love of God, the power of this good news, all of that. Because of Jesus, the light shines and we can see it. And
Mhm.
when we see it, we can partake of it. It's like the
Mhm.
woman who was dying of thirst until God showed her the well. It says he opened her eyes, so the darkness was lifted, and she saw what was always there. I
Mhm.
always liken it to, when we don't when we're in darkness, we're like blind people begging for food. When's God going to do something good? When the whole time there's a feast right in front of us,
Right.
and that's a lot of what it's like. And Jesus is the master that sets the table and says, "Now come and dine. Look, all things are prepared." And so we celebrate him at Christmas because he is the revelation and manifestation of the goodness of God.
It seems like the easiest time of the year to really express the goodness of God because you're thinking of how can I bless this person, or how can I give extra over here, or how can I
You
celebrate?
know why I think it is? I think because the Christmas message is very simple and clear. There's no demand put on us. There's
Mhm.
no question about, well, who's it for, who's it not for, who's in, who's out, who's worthy of it, who's not. It's always about God doing something. God gave something. God, this promise given, this promise fulfilled, everything coming in Him, peace on earth, goodwill to men, glory to God, good news for all people. We see that. And so it's just a very simple and powerful gospel that gets preached at Christmas time. It's in our music, it's on our Christmas cards. There's not one negative thing, there's not one demand made upon us in Christmas. And so it's very merry and bright. It's light, and there is a lightness about it. And there is a generosity that we feel because the message is God Himself is generous to us. We believe it and we're aware of that. We're hearing it
Mhm.
all over the place at Christmas time.
Yeah,
That's why I love Christmas.
and that's why we put up our tree. Do you realize we've already put up our tree, but, like, we put it up before we ever put it up before in the past.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's like we put it up, like
Well, people are seeing this like, in December.
oh,
We
that's
we
true.
we put it up, a
In
month before
November. Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. So, anyway, we just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas and to enjoy this season and to remember all the myriad ways that God is loving us through Jesus and through this story of, you know, Christ being born, and all the different kind of nuances and layers that's involved in his love
What
for
a
us. Yeah.
wonderful thing to celebrate. Those of us that sat in darkness,
And
thank
a great
God
life.
we've seen a great light.
Life.
Have a great day.